Broadcasting live from the IRSMedic studios, it's Parental Advisory. And we are live on Parental Advisory. We're talking about Hollywood today. I'm very excited.
I know. We're going to be famous.
I know.
Yeah. We don't have to move to Hollywood. We're going to talk
We'll
about
just
it
stay
here.
right here. Yesterday you said, let's talk about a couple potential topics. And when you said Hollywood, I just got all giddy and said, let's do it.
We all do.
And then I researched and got angry. As I find is the sort of trend for these shows. All right. So we're talking about Hollywood tax cuts.
Right.
Particularly. So what does that mean?
Well, I think the first thing, and when you're, it's not really tax cuts or just tax preferences, is that when something's legal, they say, well, it's a tax preference. If they don't like it, but it might be legal, then it's a tax loophole.
Okay.
So that's sort of it's interesting choice of language that you hear around, depending on what is socially or politically acceptable and what's not. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're stuck with things they don't like because it's there on the law and they can't get the judges to side their way. Then it's sort of a loophole. But tax preferences, perfectly, that's completely acceptable. And something you have to realize in sort of how all of these work, all these preferences work, it's not because somebody in Washington, D.C. sitting around one day saying, you know who needs a break? You know who needs a break? Our poor friends in Hollywood who get no recognition at all. Nobody knows about these people. Mm-hmm. You know, they need some help.
They're struggling.
They're struggling out there, these poor people. I feel so bad for them. And nobody even knows who they are.
No.
Nobody. So let's go help them out. And so one day, all of a sudden, out of the blue, a bunch of people get together and say, well, let's create Section 181 of the U.S. tax code that might give some beneficial treatment. That came totally from us. Nobody from the outside, no lobbying agency came to us and said, here, copy and paste. No one did that. And I think it's something to understand how, and sort of through my jest here, about how politically powerful Hollywood is. Mm-hmm. Now, let's assume that Hollywood gave no money to Washington, D.C. Let's assume that whole Hollywood fundraiser scene shut down.
Okay.
And that no one in Washington, D.C. got money from Hollywood. Claudine, do you think Hollywood would still be politically powerful?
That's a really good question. Probably not.
Really?
I don't know.
So somebody who can be the mouthpiece for and present you in a certain way.
I see that.
Somebody who, if you hang out with, will introduce you to all the famous people that you can name drop to your kids, friends, business associates to make you look like a bigger shot.
Okay. So it goes back to the cool kid theory.
That's right. There it is. Yeah. You get to hang out with the cool kids. So even if Hollywood sent no money to Washington, D.C., every politician, and this is the thing, every politician is stumbling over themselves, trying to, get that picture. Hey, look at me here. Yeah, we're on your side. That's right. It's always that thumbs up there. That's
my buddy.
Where you go to psychopath college to get that thumbs up just right.
Me and Ludacris. We're going to roll later.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up, right? Yeah, so that's sort of the thing of to understand how anyone gets their tax preference. Mm-hmm. It's not by accident. It happens because there's an intense lobby or intense desire to assist a particular political constituency.
Okay.
And so Hollywood is just one where get them on your side. You'll benefit just with who you can associate with it, and then your career-wise, they could really help you get to the next level.
Right.
Yeah.
So I started investigating this, and one of the things I found, too, was you can write things off, for instance, if you're going to shoot live in a particular city or state.
Yep.
Okay, so this is what really sort of irritated me. So doing a little research, I found that since 2006, New York City has given $1.5 billion in rebates to NBC, Sony, Columbia, HBO. This can all be obtained through the Freedom of Information Act. I found it free online. So, and people were up in arms saying New York City is struggling. They're trying to get jobs. They're trying to get new businesses. And they're giving away $1.5 billion in rebates. And the argument was, well, we're bringing business into the city with these movie shoots. But you're thinking about it, little hotel and restaurant revenue, right? Maybe some jobs, but really, 10, 15 minimum wage an hour jobs. You're going to get, some rental business and things like that. On the flip side, you're shutting down streets and neighborhoods, of some, lots of businesses. So do you really think since 2006 they've made over $1.5 billion in profit?
Wow. That,
So
that was epic. Good job on that.
Why would they do that?
Because I think we have our answer, because you're able to make it look like, that you're able to show your city off as, look at this, it's a destination. It brings, it's something you can point to your to voters. Look at all these jobs, and it's big. It's up there. People see it. Oh, wow, look at that. That's production. That must have been a lot of jobs. But production by its nature is temporary. It ended. Guess what? See you later. Yeah, we don't need you anymore. Yeah. It's over. So you're not really providing careers where people can have a stable environment. You're basically bringing in transients, or a demand for people who will be somewhat transient and always hopping from a gig to another.
Right.
So not the greatest lifestyle.
No, so they're giving away taxpayers' money, and it's not like the production studios are hurting for money. It's not like they're desperate for profits.
I'm not comfortable making that judgment.
I'm fine saying it. We already talked about the King of Thailand. I got nothing left to lose. Who's a fine man. Fine man doing a fantastic job.
That's right, Sally.
Thanks, Frank. And the other interesting fact I found was, so I was like, all right, New York City, let's look into smaller states. Another state that was very popular was North Carolina for some reason. So they allocated $30 million in credits, okay? They found that for every dollar they allocated to the state film production credit, it lost 54 cents. But they created 55 to 70 new jobs with a total payroll of $2 million. And these were temporary jobs. And a great quote I found that I loved is, it would be more sensible to give 100 unemployed people briefcases with $100,000 in cash. And you wouldn't be stealing it from the taxpayers. Hopefully. So they're stupid state tax credits.
I think really stupid. And it's the same thing where every politician, as soon as someone from Hollywood shows up, okay, this helps build their legitimacy. This helps build their self. This is so important, as they're trying to consolidate power, hang out with the politically powerful and unknown entity. And you see the same thing with pro sports teams. Every one of them, these deals are just loser after loser after loser. And taxpayers who are not fans, who don't like the sport, are forced to subsidize somebody who does like a sport, right?
It's ridiculous.
Why can't my sports get subsidized? No, the professional cycling isn't really, they hate us. They want to run me off the road. They completely hate me. And all we want to do is use the roads that are there with our little tires. And maybe if traffic could go around and not run us over directly, that kill me. That's all I'm looking for. I don't even need a stadium. Yep. Don't even need a stadium. But no one likes cyclists.
No, they don't. They're going to pay you to not.
Yes.
We're going to shut down professional cycling. So I think that's another example of them wanting to be cool kids. The film production studios come to the mayor of New York City and say, we want to shoot this film. Oh, that's great. That's cool. We're going to give you some tax credits. Make us look good.
And I'm sure there's probably a press release and a video and a meeting and, we're going to meet for lunch. And now there's that politician has a cell phone or a way to get in touch with that Hollywood person. And now there's that relationship. So, of course, I need to help. I want to get tickets to something. Oh, sure. Here you go.
My daughter would really like to see Justin Bieber. We'll hook you up. Now, there are some ways that Hollywood tax cuts can benefit the regular person. Well, wealthy person.
Yeah, regular wealthy person. Yeah. Absolutely.
Actual wealthy.
Yeah, not just the state tax credit, but the IRS has a very generous code provision. And I mentioned it earlier in the section. It's Section 181.
Yep.
That can really help people out.
All right. So right after the break, we're going to talk about Hollywood tax cuts, Section 181, right after this. Anthony, tell me about your recurring nightmare.
It's that nightmare where you're yelling, but no words are coming out of your mouth.
I have a similar nightmare where I'm in an emergency, I need to dial 911, and my phone won't work.
That sounds terrifying.
It is. And I think I know why we have these dreams.
Why is that?
The problem with the IRS isn't just the IRS. The problem is that people don't see the IRS for the horrible risk it presents.
I think you're right. We spend so much of our time trying to warn people about the IRS, but sometimes I wonder if our words go unheeded.
But the IRS can be dealt with the right team and the right preparation.
Can IRSMedic be the right team for someone with an IRS problem?
Yes, but only if they see the IRS as a problem. IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP. Real tax attorneys for tough tax problems. And we're live back on Parental Advisory talking about Hollywood tax cuts today. And there's something called Section 181 of the Hollywood tax preference. What should we call it? Hollywood tax preference?
We're going to probably advise people to do this when needed. So we're going to refer this as a preference.
Okay.
Because I also want to be cool, too. I don't want
to be one of the cool kids.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I have a few people I fancy in Hollywood, and I'd really like to meet them. So
I'd really like to see Justin Bieber in concert. No, I won't. All right, so what does Section 181 mean?
Okay, so I'm not going to read the code because I think if we wanted people to stop listening, that's the way to do it. So I'm going to just sort of generally explain to you how it works using an example.
Okay.
And something, one of the basic things is how some things you can write off in a year, 100%, write it off, lower your income, not pay any, therefore you don't have to pay taxes. The producers, that entire movie was how to lose money and make money by paying taxes. Well, actually, not lose. You don't want to lose money. That's never a good idea.
Right.
Losing money isn't really a thing. So it was built on a faulty tax premise. But I didn't want to kill the show for my wife, so I just zipped it. Yeah. Because there's actually a way that you would the way the savings works, and I'll use it in this example, is that if you invested $1 million in, say, rental real estate, okay, you could see that, okay, and you would probably get a net rent of about $50,000, $60,000, a 6% return after you take care of various things. Okay, so you're getting a 6% return. You're also you're able to lower your tax. You're able to lower your taxes by 1/39th of the purchase price.
Oh,
right. You can't write off the whole $1 million from your income, even though you don't have the $1 million anymore. It's for business. I mean, this is a business expense. You're buying rental real estate,
right?
But you have to pay for that with post-tax dollars.
Okay.
You're not just able to say, yeah, it's a business expense. Like if you go out and buy $1 million worth of paper for your office, well, you could write off $1 million of paper because it's paper. It's not a rental. That's just the tax preference.
Okay.
That's just the way it is. Because the IRS looks at it as an asset, not an expense, even though $1 million worth of paper is kind of an asset. It is. It's $1 million worth of paper. The point is that on that $1 million, you're able to deduct about a little over $25,000 a year in depreciation expense.
Okay.
Every year for 39 years, till that $1 million is all used up. So in our example of tax brackets, we had Rocky, that retired gentleman who sounds like a great guy. I mean, he does sound like a lot of fun.
He does.
He makes about $400,000 a year in passive rental real estate. And in our example, we didn't really go through any of his depreciation schedules, so we're just going to assume that's where, in this example, that's where his adjusted gross income ended up before and after. Now Rocky, he has $400,000. Now Rocky wants a new property that's $1 million.
Okay.
Okay. So he goes, spends $1 million, gets this property. Now his income, he's able to reduce his income from $400,000 a year to $375,000 a year. Okay. So this nets him a tax saving from that $93,000 we had him at before, of an effective rate of a little under 24%, to a little over $87,000. Ultimately, it's a tax savings of $5,000. For spending for investing $1 million,
right,
you get a tax benefit of $5,000. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, it's not that great. I mean, that's that sort of thing. Now, let's suppose Rocky is watching Rocky.
Okay.
And he's like, God, I want to meet Sylvester Stallone. And then he sees something. Sylvester Stallone's looking for investors in a film project. Then he goes to a tax attorney and says, hey, I want to just invest in film. And the tax attorney says, you know what, that's a good idea. And let me tell you why. Because not only will you be able to meet Sylvester Stallone and hang out with him and have lunch with him, you're also going to get a tax benefit you're not aware of. And he says, you know what, I don't want you to spend $1 million. Don't want you to do that at all. What I want you to do is, this year, I want you to give Sylvester Stallone $400,000 for his film production. Next year, give him another $400,000.
Okay.
Because this is what's going to happen. That's a direct write-off. You're writing that $400,000 that you have for your income on your income. You're lowering that to $0.
Holy
zero.
Crap.
So you're paying $0 this year. You're paying $0 next year. So you just have a savings right there of $190,000, and you get to meet
Sylvester Stallone.
I mean, Sly. I mean, he's
Come on.
awesome. I mean, he'll make a montage of you like, hey, can we do a little jokey montage? Right? All right. So that's what you're getting. You're saving $86,000. And then here's the thing. The project may make money.
Oh.
Right? I mean, Sly knows how to, he knows how to put a wow on the audience's face.
Right.
He knows how to get the job done. So you still might make money on top of it. Aside from your upfront tax savings, that's the difference. This is an upfront tax savings this year. When you're, $1 today is always worth more than $1 down the road. The present value of money now you can do more things with. So you have $196,000, which is just under 20% of that $1 million. And then if you add in the $200,000 you didn't spend, you have $400,000 right now today that you wouldn't have had if you paid that $1 million. And so that $400,000 you can invest, it's working for you. It's doing its thing. And so down the road, you'll have that money. This is the difference in your depreciation. See, what stinks about it is that present value of money, because you're going to get that $25,000 deduction. And it works in the IRS's favor so ridiculously bad, this depreciation, that people don't realize, because on year 39, what's $25,000 going to be worth?
True.
Right? It's not going to be worth what it is. We know inflation occurs. Federal government puts more money into the supply.
Yep.
And it's not going to be worth that. $25,000 is probably going to be worth, I don't know, $6,000.
Buy a pair of pretty shoes with it.
Yeah. Who knows what it's worth? It's so much more worth today.
And so in your plan, he gives $400,000 this year, $400,000 next year. He's still got $200,000 left of the original $1 million he was going to invest.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that, to get the right car, right look, you don't want to show up with Sly looking like some bum.
Right.
You got to get a personal trainer. You got to look right. Hey, being in your 70s is no excuse. That's not it. You got to look good.
He's going to be the coolest 70-year-old in Florida. And then perhaps move to Hollywood and just keep investing.
Keep going. Right.
Is there a cap?
No. Well, yes and no. Yep. That's a good. It's up to, I think, $15 million.
Oh. Wait, unless it's inner city, and then it's up to 20.
Is that right?
Reading that.
Oh,
yes,
my God.
Yep. Because they were like, wait, let's make the inner city look. Maybe more people will move to the inner city.
Right. And Sly, he has Philadelphia is, he could do Rocky
27.
Whatever it is. He's like, yeah, we're going to go back to. Hey, Rocky, I have an idea. We'll go back to our roots in Philly. Yes.
And they should bring the Russian back.
Oh, yeah.
He was my favorite.
He was great. Did you see him dancing on
Dolph Lundgren?
He was doing a dance on Danish television. No. It was good, yeah.
What?
Definitely.
Although I was going to Google him, but I probably shouldn't because he probably didn't. I think he didn't age too
well.
He
aged pretty good.
He's
a bigger gentleman.
I'd like to keep the picture in my head of the original.
No, I think you'd be happy. And I'm not just saying that because I want to meet Dolph. I'm not just saying that, but if you are listening, I do want to meet you. And I think you look great. Love everything you're doing. Just want to hang out with you. That's
Maybe
all.
make a film.
Maybe make a film together.
All right. So I don't know. I'm digging this Hollywood tax code.
Right. And this is one of the other things too. The Section 181 is always in what's known as like this tax extenders, because if you look through the code, and I kept on looking, and when we're doing this, it's always saying, oh, it's not renewed. It expired. Mm-hmm. But year after year or years after year, when these codes expire, then miraculously Congress comes in. The people who can't agree on anything miraculously come in and say, oh, we're going to renew that thing that everyone in Hollywood really wants really badly.
Yeah.
We're going to renew that, even though I'm sure they didn't make any business decisions based on us knowing we were going to renew this. Not at all.
Not at all. No, it's funny you say that, because when I Googled it, it was like I would find articles from 2009 that said like renewed again, 2010, renewed, surprise, renewed again, 2011, I can't believe it.
At the last minute, renewed again.
You know what, guys? I haven't gotten my daughter's Justin Bieber tickets yet. Can we renew this, please, until we can get that worked out? All right, so I think that's pretty cool. If I had $1 million, I would pick my favorite Hollywood person and perhaps I'm going to invest in the next Rousey film.
Whatever they need, right? Like, and maybe you need an extra
if I can hang out with Ronda Rousey.
I mean, come on.
I'll be your stunt double.
Whatever.
Go ahead, punch me in the face. All right, so what I want to talk about next is, since we're talking about tax shelters, we've got some examples of real tax shelters and tax shelters that perhaps aren't the smartest business decision you could make.
Right.
Yes.
We have real tax shelters, and one of the things is you want to know there's real tax shelters tax preferences that exist, and then there's complete nonsense. And I want to talk about some of those in our last segment of the day.
Right after this on Parental Advisory.
Claudine, would you believe that there is always going to be somebody who charges less than IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn?
I guess, but isn't it important that the problem be fixed once and be done correctly?
How about having your filings done as accurately and completely as possible?
Isn't it important that we anticipate the wrong things the IRS may do and have an action plan in place to fix them?
Do you want to feel emotionally secure throughout the whole process?
Do you want to ensure that you aren't billed for communicating with us?
Is it important that you can exchange documents securely with your law firm?
Is it important to you that your tax filings not be blown up years down the road when the IRS discovers sloppy mistakes?
Do you want a law firm that will anticipate the mistakes you might make and educate you on how to avoid having an IRS problem ever again?
Do you want someone that's on your side?
Do you want someone who will treat you with respect and know that we are with you till the end?
Is it important to know that any legal work is guaranteed and warranted?
Is it important to know that we give a shit?
IRSMedic, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP. Real tax attorneys for tough tax problems. We're back live on Parental Advisory talking about the Hollywood tax preferences, Section 181. And my screen right now is just lots of pictures of Dolph Lundgren, who did age well.
I told you.
Yeah,
I told
really
you.
did.
And we're not just saying that because we want to hang out with him.
No, I would definitely hang out with him.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, you know what? I'm just going to close that so I don't keep getting distracted. Okay. So, you talk about tax shelters. I'm going to be right over here. So, tax shelters, real and BS.
Right. And so one of the easiest things to market is tax shelters, because you're talking about taxes and there's so much misinformation and there's so much information, period, that it's so hard to sort through what will actually work, what will actually pass. Also, the IRS takes forever to decide on something as a scam or not. Also, a lot of scams go on and people don't get caught. They sort of were able to get by because the IRS can't see anybody, that there's only 89,000 people working at the IRS, and a fraction of those are looking at an abusive tax shelters. It's so little, and then you're trying. You have maybe 20,000 people. I don't know. I'm guessing looking at things that aren't really real that around the globe. There's just simply not enough people, and there's too much data. So, and then marketers do take advantage of that. We're like, oh yeah, check out this greatest thing, and you see it. You see the poor. You see it could be a criminal case or a civil case you're reviewing, and you're like, come on, this poor taxpayer didn't know what was going on. He was clearly lied to. He would not have done this if he was given better advice, because there was a real way. There was a real way to get a tax preference, and clearly that's what they wanted to do, not get caught and then have the attorney turn and provide evidence against them. That's not what their intent was. So that's really one of the things you have to work out. And so one of the ways to think about, well, is the tax shelter being marketed to me? Just ask yourself this, because this will make sense. This will help you decide whether or not something you should do. Tell me, this is the tax preference that exists. Who is the politically powerful lobby that this helps?
Okay.
And if you can't come up with it, it might not exist. Nothing happens in Congress for a reason, and nothing happens on their own initiative when they're just saying like, yes, you know what, this is unfair. We need to help out these people. Just sitting around their office.
Truth and justice.
Truth and justice. They read a novel. They were like, truth and justice is that way. And so it's real. I mean, the thing is these Hollywood tax preferences are real because you know how politically powerful Hollywood is. It makes sense.
Right.
You don't need to go too far. So some other things that maybe, and I'm going to show some other things that do work out, or if they don't work out, there's better tax treatments than what exists elsewhere.
Okay.
Domestic life insurance. Okay. And there's a reason why I'm saying domestic and not foreign. I'll explain that in a little bit. Domestic life insurance. When you get life insurance proceeds from a death benefit, that is tax-free. So my question is, so you're saying someone gets a big check and not any of that goes to the IRS, and that's because they feel like, oh, you know what, someone died. We don't want to have our hand out like every other time, anytime there's another transaction. This is the one. I mean, yeah, sure, we have an estate tax. We'll tax you when you die, but we won't. No. That's just totally unfair for us to have our hand out when you do that. The real answer is no. The life insurance lobby is there, making sure that doesn't happen, fighting every day. The life insurers are organized one unit with one message: do not. We will not give you money. We will not. So domestic life insurance, it exists. That's real.
Yep.
That's a strong lobby. Another strong lobby is Wall Street, right? They donate a ton, and that Acela Express between New York and Washington D.C. is always packed full, right?
Yep.
Like wow, wow, a lot of people visiting.
Yes.
A lot of film production
happening.
Right? We're doing film production in D.C. We got to get up to New York. So the Wall Street really gets a lot of beneficial treatments on tax on their individual taxes, get some help, and then what they do is how they also get help is they punish other people. They punish Wall Street investing in Wall Street. You get a better tax treatment usually than if you invested in the same thing overseas. And I'll explain how some of that works after the other things on things not to do.
Yep.
The other thing too is foreign investors into the U.S. That's inbound taxation. Okay, that you could see. Every politician wants that. You want foreign money coming in because that's foreign investment that's lifting everyone's property value up. So everyone's going to associate, our stuff's doing great. We're doing great. Yeah, let's keep it going. Whoever's doing this, we like them a lot.
Yep.
So there's going to be some beneficial tax treatment for foreign people investing in the U.S.
Got it.
A lot of people say the U.S. is the number one tax shelter in the world. I tend to agree as long as you're not a U.S. person.
It's fantastic.
And then another thing that's huge is this mistakenly called nonprofit organizations. They call themselves nonprofit corporations. I'm like, oh, there's profits. There's just no shareholders.
Yes.
That's the difference. And if you look at where all of these nonprofits have, no matter what nonprofit it is, they have headquarters in Washington D.C.
I found that.
Right, but they have nothing to do with
the San Francisco nonprofit for La 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 is located with offices in Washington.
Why would that be? And it's because they're there. They're there, and so there's a lot of things you can do when structuring a tax preference strategy. Some things that we like to see, if someone's looking to do something, is you do something with a domestic life insurance policy, and then some offshore stuff might work. And then you might be using a nonprofit to structure something to reduce your taxable income. Also for foreign investors in the U.S., you're going to be, that's one of the things, it's better to be a non-U.S. person than a U.S. person, which sort of violates the 14th Amendment. It's like, well, wait a second. I thought we're not supposed to discriminate on the basis of, your citizenry. Well, it's done in a tax. Well, that's different. It's taxes. And of course, you have, the Supreme Court who wants tax money. And like, well, no, that pays us, so it's okay. Trust me. No. Trust me. It's fine. And that's some of the way it works. You have to understand all these. How vested everyone is into the system the way it is, how much effort it is. And sometimes you get outraged. You're like, come on, man, this can't be fair. This is crazy. This tax system is crazy. And it is crazy. But think about the effort someone in Hollywood did to get their preferences through, that they have to go, okay, so you have to go and hobnob with politicians. Ugh. Who in their right mind wants to do that? Really? So you have to talk to the politician. You have to talk to their assistant, who's just a yes person.
You have to invite them to your house for parties.
And then you have to invite strangers over to your house who are going to judge everything you own, everything you have.
They're going to steal the stuff in the bathroom.
Right? Maybe. Go through your medicine. Oh, so that's what you're taking. Yeah, I thought so. Or maybe plant something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who wants their entire house turned upside down for a bunch of strangers? Ugh. And then if what you have, they're not judging it for being less, then they're saying, oh, they're too flashy. Oh, they're so flashy. So you can't win either way.
But the entire night, everyone's walking around pretending that they love each other. It's hours of just pretense. Ew.
It's like, you can't pay me enough money, really. So, what I like is if they want to do that to get their preferences, if they want to do the hard work of creating the network and spending it, and they actually writing the checks. And when they're writing that checks to support, they don't know for sure if they're going to get it. So they're risking their efforts and their money. They're investing in these politicians for what it may or may not happen. Usually it does. So that's what you have to realize. And that's just one person we're talking about. And that's, so how are all these people around the country and around the world influencing our tax code? And that's what you have to realize you're up against when you're trying to come up with like, okay, this is really unfair. I'm really outraged. This is what you're up against. And one person by themselves is not going to take it down. And one person standing up for truth and justice is like going into a machine gun nest. You know you're going to die. There's no way around it. And some of the, I mock the tax code, and I think you hear probably a tone through this of like, this is such BS. But one thing I wouldn't hesitate for a second implementing any of these for a client. Not at all. If this meets their what they're doing, I do it in a heartbeat. Now, some of the things I won't do. Some of the things I won't do is some of the tax shelters not to fall for. A big one. Tell me the horse lobby in Washington, D.C.
If you Google that, there's quite a bit of information.
Yeah, there's not like horses. People are always trying to write off their horse expenses.
There was a whole eHow
on how to write off your horse.
How to write off your horse, because, I take my tax advice from eHow.
Yeah, well, you can do it right, but people routinely do it again and again. And the IRS routinely hammers people who don't do it. There was one interior designer who had her business plan based around having a horse business so that she could meet high-end people and then sell her interior designing business. She actually put it in her business plan, which is what people don't do. She treated it like a business, and then she says, the tax court says, yep, you're the one person out of 1,000 who we're going to write off your horse expense. But horses are constantly challenged, and there's just no horse lobby that's together to say, yeah, let's get some preferential treatment for
the horse
equine and sporting events or whatever it is.
Because from what I can see, the actual tax shelters are large, well-organized groups of extremely wealthy, powerful people. I don't see that really happening right now with the horse.
Well, that's what's weird is that a lot of them are individually wealthy and powerful, but they're not lobbied around that centered thing of horse. They're going to be split up. That all these people that we deal with, our clients tend to be, for this, they tend to be wealthy and powerful.
Right.
But what happens is that their interests aren't aligned, and and all these people vote for people who vote directly against their interests. It's like, well, why do you have to go and vote for this person to give you a tax treatment? Why don't you just vote for the tax treatment you like? Why don't you just vote for a person who's going to make all taxes lower? Why don't you just do that instead of like this person where you're hanging on tooth and nail, waiting like, is 181 going to be renewed? Oh my god! Why don't you just vote like, let's vote for less government? Why don't we get together and all vote for less government? That, hey, we're all wealthy here, guys. Who here likes paying 30% plus to taxes? Nobody, right? Okay, we're paying for everything. The 1% is paying for 95% of everything. Maybe that's a little bit unfair. Let's all get together. But no, see, they're all split up. They're all split up. Like, well, you're really a Democrat. You're really a Republican. You're really somewhere over here, and they're all split up. It's a divide and conquer strategy. That's how it works. So that's where you got to stay away from the things that don't have the organization.
Right.
If they don't have that organization, that one issue organization, the one issue organizations are the ones that get their stuff done. The ones that are kind of like, everything, they never get anything done.
No.
So be for one thing, and there's nobody there saying, we're for rich people only. That's it. Nobody one more
else.
thing, nothing else. And nobody really is. So then another thing too is to look at is where the tax code really hammers people, and to know if something is probably not a sure thing or might be a little bit nonsensical. Really look out for it. Is outbound taxation. For the tax code really hammers when someone wants to take their U.S. money. Okay, let me just explain it. So let me tell you, so taxpayer, this is what you're looking to do. You're looking to take the money you have in the United States, and you want to take that money out and invest it in another country. How does that help me?
That doesn't help.
That doesn't help me. No. We don't want that. The money stays in the U.S. those foreigners, as they're known, those foreigners are just going to take our money. We don't like it. We want to stay in the U.S. And that's really what happens. It's an incredibly protective tax code. And what's ingenious about it, I guess evilly ingenious about it, is that it's so complicated no taxpayer knows everything about it.
Yes.
And all these foreign countries don't understand how it really works. They don't get it. And I've talked to, I don't know, I think people pretty high up in their country to say, this is what's going on, right? And they're like, no, they didn't tell us that at the UN. Okay, this is how it's working. You guys are getting screwed left and right. Oh, yeah.
I don't see that in the contract I signed.
You see how it works? And when you sometimes I'm like, oh, the U.S. isn't really a global empire. We're not going around. It's not really like that. But then when I look at the tax code, I'm like, maybe it is, because it's all about the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, is it going to help Is it going to help a senator? Answer that question. Is it going to help a senator? Okay, then go from there.
Yep. So you have no problem employing the tax shelters?
Absolutely not.
I think it's neat what you said earlier. Anything that could keep $1 out of the IRS's pocket.
Right.
Legally.
Right, legally. If it could keep $1 out of the IRS's pocket, and also consider that all these people who are making, who are wealthy, if they pay no taxes for the rest of their life, they still paid 1,000 times more than the typical taxpayer.
Right.
So they've already paid enough, in my opinion. So I have no problem at all with the IRS getting $0 of any of my clients' money if it's possible, and if it could be done legally.
You know what I think is cool too? We talk so much about the IRS and when there's issues with your taxes and they come after you. So this is sort of a neat spin on what can we do before we have issues? What can we do with our money to avoid all that? Let's be proactive.
Yeah, and read the landscape. Pick your battlefield.
Yeah.
That's always, every successful general has always picked their battlefield, and they'll pull out. They're like, this looks bad. Retreating isn't a bad idea to say this ground does not favor us. We're fighting uphill. Fighting uphill is not fun. It's not fun, and you're probably going to lose, and it's a numbers game. So pick your battlefield, and I think for those, and because sometimes it gets the best of me. This sort of the hypocrisy of the entire system gets the best of me, and then I have to sort of take a step back to say, okay, well, what time in history did you not have to pay protection money to somebody?
Yep.
It exists. It just is. It's always going to exist. You're going to have to pay protection money to somebody, whether that's a mobster or a democratically elected government. They will want money from you for protection. And guess what? You're going to need it too. And the thing is you actually do need it from things. So you're paying money for that protection. So think about that, and think about and when you're outraged with the tax code to say how unfair it is, think about this investment all these people have done and all these lobbies have done. Now, your decision at this point is to say, okay, well, I guess I can, screw this. I'm just going to do some bullshit tax shelter. I'm just going to do some nonsense, or I'm going to make some tax protester argument that's going to fail. And so I'm going to risk my entire fortune. I'm going to risk my everything I have, because if I get caught, I'm going to lose all my money. I'm going to go to prison. Or you could say, well, you know what? Okay, that's choice one, is to go full crazy or half crazy, because you're actually sane. It's the systems that's crazy.
Yep.
And risk everything. Your second option is to not take advantage of things, because that wouldn't be honorable. Because you wouldn't take that because, well, it's unfair the way the system is. Hey, man, that's the system. That's what it is. Your third option is to say, well, all these people have done all this hard work and investments in these tax preferences. So you know what? I'm going to let them handle all these politicians. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draft off of their hard work. As we're talking about professional cycling, just like NASCAR, it's all about drafting.
Yep.
You are working, depending on how fast you're going, where the crosswinds are coming out, you're working somewhere between, 50 and 10% of the person in front of you. So you can just sit in there, relax. Yeah, man. And you're out in front. Oh, you're in front, man. Great job out there. I'm sure that's me. That's me racing, because I'm like, yeah, I want to show these guys how strong I am. And I'm the moron who's out in front and everywhere except the finish line.
Yeah.
That's just sort of my, I just can't help myself. And So you could just be drafting off, let them do the hard work. It's like, okay, and read the race, I guess. Read the race. How's this going? All right, I know where I need to be. I know whose wheel I'm going to draft off of. And then right at the end, I'm going to come around and win for me.
Right. And, I think what frustrates me is I think of people like Irwin Schiff. Like, it feels like you should be able to fight the good fight and do this and beat the system. But thus far, I haven't heard too much that gives me hope and optimism, unless we, the people, come together to fight it. But
that's never, I don't think that's ever going to happen. And that's one of those things when you realize that, the Christians believe in original sin. And I used to say, no, that can't be true. And every day goes on, I'm like, no, I think it's right. I think every day it goes on, I'm like, I think they're more and more right. And that things are always going to be with us. There's always going to be things that with us. Hypocrisy is always going to be with us. And people using a tax code to punish somebody else is always going to be with us. That is how this is going to be. And so you have to be the one to say, this is not any unique time in history. This is how things have always been. This is how things always will be. Now, are you going to be? And God bless Irwin Schiff. I mean, he put his liberty where his mouth was. He's intellectually correct on a lot of things. And Peter did respond to us. I'd love to get him on the show. He did respond to us to say that we were incorrect about a few things of some of his arguments he made, and we'd love to give him the platform. Yeah, absolutely. But ultimately he didn't. It's like, Irwin Schiff, you're a really brilliant guy and you're a really smart guy, great father, but you are one person going against this entire machine where there is so much money coming in and influence. There's no way you're going to win. Yep. It's just, no. Why? You're cannon fodder. You're complete cannon fodder. You're not going to get the fight. If it's not a fair fight, don't fight. Or what you want to do is fight the unfair fight where you're the one with the advantage. And that's what you do. Not who wants a fair fight? You don't even want a fair fight. Fair fight, you still might lose. Yeah. That's the way I think it all works. And so that's where people should understand what you're up against. And to be okay with the hypocrisy. It always will be with us. And then you use it to your advantage.
I mean, from the book you recommended, it started back in Egyptian times.
Yeah.
At least.
And the same things, right? The same things go on. And that's when you realize the more you learn about history, the more you learn that this time, just because we have an iPhone that is as thin as, I don't know what would that be. What would be this thin in Egyptian times?
I don't know.
3 papyrus sheets.
I'm sure the Egyptians would have loved funny cat videos too.
They did worship cats.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
true. That's right. Nothing changed. And that's really where, to find your place in history, you're not going to change human nature. Wow. All right. Now, can we close with your Godfather example? Yeah, right. The Godfather is one of those movies. Godfather Part 2 is one of those movies. If you start watching, you have to watch it to the end. You can't. It's addictive. Yes. And one of the lines that I always loved was when Michael brought the politician, right? Brought the politician to his ranch in Nevada. Because everyone wants to hang out with a politician, and of course Michael did. Of course he did. But Michael kind of knew he didn't like the politician. The politician didn't like him, and it was Senator Pat Geary was the name of the character. I didn't know that. And at whatever time this is, I am about to swear, Chen. So keep notice of this. I'm going to quote it verbatim. Senator Pat Geary says, "I despise your masquerade, the dishonest way you pose yourself. You and your whole family." And Michael responds, "We're both part of the same hypocrisy, Senator." And that movie just rings true. That Hollywood movie rings true. It's so watchable because everything is touching on some truth of human life. Yep. And if you want protection, you have to pay someone. There you go. All right. Well, thanks for listening to us today live on Parental Advisory. You can always visit parentaladvisoryshow.com to listen to past shows. We've got quite a library in there now. You can learn quite a bit from us. We'll be back here live Friday at 11 a.m. Tune in to listen. Thanks for listening to Parental Advisory.
Thanks for joining Parental Advisory, hosted by Anthony Parent, produced by Claudine Gindel, that's me, engineered by Chris Chen. For more podcasts, visit our website at parentaladvisoryshow.com and like us on Facebook to submit story ideas. We'd like to thank our sponsors, IRSMedic.com, the law offices of Parent, and Wynn, LLP, real tax attorneys for tough tax problems.